This run was performed on January 24th, 2025. It's likely the fastest that anyone has ever beaten Pokemon Yellow with just a Porygon. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Porygon run. Porygon is one of those Pokemon that I've been curious about for a little while now on how good it can actually be. Now, I know it's not going to be a great Pokemon, so let's get that out of the way right now. Its base stats are such: 65 HP, 60 attack, 70 defense, 40 special, and 40 speed and 75 special. That 40 speed is going to be a limiting factor, and the stats in general, like the total, is just not very good. Porygon, however, does have some pretty good moves that it learns throughout the playthrough. It gets some pretty good tools like Thunderbolt and Ice Beam. Those will be important later on, as well as the normal typing is a pretty good typing. So we've got Stab, Body Slam. I wish we had Stab, Body Slam, but we don't. We have Stab, Tri Attack instead. Now, Tri Attack at 80 base power and a normal move is going to be effectively 120 base power physical attack. It's going to be pretty useful utilizing our average attack stat, but with a good base power and no recoil, it's going to be pretty good. Double Edge I considered using, but I don't actually end up using Double Edge here because typically Porygon is going to be using a mix of physical and special attacks, and it turns out that really the damage ranges work out in such a way that you don't really need to use Double Edge for that little extra reach. You're pretty fine just using Tri Attack against all the Pokemon that you'd like to use physical attacks against, where you can use special attacks like Ice Beam and Thunderbolt against the Pokemon that you want to use special attacks against. So what we lack in base stats, we make up for somewhat in Learn Set. That said, we do have one pretty significant challenge going into Brock, which is we only have normal moves for Brock. Now, when I initially routed this, typically I like to do my first playthrough and then go do follow-up playthroughs after looking at the experience router and calculating some damage ranges, stuff like that. But in this case, I actually ran damage ranges on Brock before doing my initial playthrough. I didn't want to waste a lot of time overtraining or anything, so I thought, let me take a look at the ranges, get an idea, and then try to experiment a little bit on Brock before doing my first playthrough, my first full playthrough. That was kind of a funny experience because I thought that Otto's EXP router for a second had a problem with it. I was using Conversion, and Conversion's a very fun move. One of the things that makes the early game pretty fun and interesting to route out for Porygon is that Conversion gives them a lot of flexibility. I can change to any type that I'm facing up against. I'll mention now that Scott from Scott's Thoughts, you may have heard of him. I'm a big fan. Scott did a Porygon race a couple years ago, and they would utilize strategies like Conversion on a poison type to avoid being poisoned, nifty stuff like that. But I got inspired looking back at those runs and thinking, okay, well, there are some times where Conversion could really help, like against Misty and against Brock, to take only resisted damage from normal types once we turn into a rock type. So there's some really cool interactions, some really fun things that can happen there. But also I think that using Conversion on a poison type is inefficient because we lose Stab for Tackle. And so that means we'll do less with every hit. And this leads me back to where I started making this initial point. I bet you thought I lost my train of thought, but I didn't. Brock is going to be hard to tackle our way through, but we don't get Side Beam until level 23. So there's no way we're going to train to level 23. That's way too much for Brock. And we don't need to, but we are going to be tackling our way through. And using Conversion defensively makes a lot of sense. We'll take half damage. But that also means that Tackle is going to do less damage because we won't have Stab for Tackle anymore once we use Conversion. So when I was running my damage ranges, I wasn't accounting for not having same type attack bonus. And I thought that I could get through Brock at a lower level. It turns out that I think it's level 11 that's really required for Brock if you don't hate yourself. Of course, it could hypothetically be possible to run it at like level 9 or 10 or something and get like insanely lucky and win the fight. It's realistically, if you're going to do multiple runs, not something that you'd want to do to yourself. Even at level 11, Brock seemed anecdotally to be only maybe a 30 or 40% chance to win, something like that. So I did have to play this early game quite a number of times to get just a handful of playthroughs. And actually, I believe this was only my 4th playthrough, which is on the low end for me, as we see that I use Conversion and then Sharpen a number of times. I haven't talked about Sharpen yet, but this is our MVP move. Not only does it increase our attack, which is incredibly important and useful in its own right, but it's also later on going to be badge boosting our special and our speed, and both of those are going to be exceptionally important later. which we'll get to. Now, Onyx, you can see, is an absolute menace. It's faster than me. Porygon is slow. What does that mean? We're moving second into Bide, and it keeps using Bide. So here I gamble. I gamble that it's going to be a 2-turn Bide because I figure I need another tackle in because I'm getting desperate. I only have 13 health left, but thankfully the Onyx decides to be completely useless, which is what we need. Mist binds, screeches into nothing, and no Bides for a while. So we're through Brock, sub 5 minutes, which is quite good for a normal type with average stats. So now we're off onto the next stretch of the game and anticipating Side Beam. We will unfortunately be doing more early game training than I would like. One problem with running a Pokemon that only knows normal moves is that it's not going to be very good against Rival 2, the one right in front of Nugget Bridge. It's much better to be a special attacker there. Another problem is that it's not super easy to beat Misty. Conversion will help because Conversion will indicate to Misty that you are a water type and she needs to only use Tackle or Harden. So we have a couple of tools that we can use here, but really we just want to get to Side Beam. There's a lot of poison types on Nugget Bridge, and the faster we can get to Side Beam, the faster we're going to be able to knock out those Pokemon. And there are a lot of Pokemon in that small stretch, and many of them are poison. And even the ones that are not poison, they all take at least neutral damage to Psychic until you get to the Drowsy at the very end of that route. Okay. So why did I pick this run? I'll talk on a macro scale since we have a second. I'm just doing a little bit of early game training here with some mandatory trainers. This is not just a regular Porygon. This is the chosen one. This thing was so lucky. I only ran 4 full playthroughs, which is on the low end for me. It may sound like a lot, but typically I run 8, 9, 10 full playthroughs with a Pokemon before I get a time that I'm satisfied with. Sometimes it happens faster, 5 or 6 runs. Less than 5 runs is almost never. And there's good reasons for that. It's because you have to kind of route it out first, right? So it usually takes me about 3 playthroughs before I solidify the route that I really, really want to play. Then it takes me maybe a couple more playthroughs to get the muscle memory down to where I feel like I'm not thinking about this, thinking about that. You don't want to think while you're playing, really, right? You want to be moving based off of muscle memory. The time to think about your run is before you start playing. You want to already have the game plan in mind. You want to have already chosen what to do in certain situations, like have contingency plans, and you want to know where you're moving here, where you're moving there, how you're going to route through. You want to have all that mapped out, and it usually takes me about 3 playthroughs to make sure that my mapping is there, and then another couple playthroughs after that to have it be ingrained muscle memory so that I'm not thinking, hesitating, wait, where was I supposed to go next? So usually about 5 playthroughs is where I start to feel like this is where I could put up a great run. I'm playing well enough that I could put up a great run with this Pokemon. And then it's a matter of luck, right? So I also want the luck to align. Typically to get a really great time, I'm also strategically making some gambles and wanting to get luck at a couple key spots. So sometimes it happens at 5, sometimes it happens at 8, sometimes it happens at 10. In this case, this Porygon, this little guy, has so many close calls. This is a fun run. I'm as excited to share it with all of you. I didn't think that I was going to easily one-up this. I thought it would take me many tries to one-up it, and I was very happy with this result. So we'll see what happens. It's not a top-tier Pokemon. This is not going to compete with some of the other Pokemon that I've already run on this channel. So don't have too high of expectations for it. The Pokemon that are really strong, like the starters and Pokemon with like good growth rates, and also like this is an average growth rate. It's medium fast. It's fine. It's not a slow growth rate, but it doesn't have that many answers. It has to do like early game training to be able to compete. This is not going to be a top tier finish, but I think we're still going to have some really hype moments, and we're going to be able to see how slippery we can get past some of these trainers. So you may have noticed that we fought a couple optionals already. We fought the Lass, and of course we did some optional training before Brock to get to level 11. The key point there in level 11, by the way, you might think, isn't level 10 a damage rounding threshold? Why do you need level 11? Well, level 11 actually helps defensively. That's the point where after we use conversion, we only take 1 damage against the Geodude versus it's doing 2 before that. So level 11 was the right play. We had to do some optional training to get there. I'm going to choose to do a little bit more optional training here as well. This next stretch, like I said, has poison types. I use a couple rare candies there because Misty is really hard to beat at a lower level, like level 18, level 19. Very difficult to beat Misty. There's already luck involved in beating Brock, so I don't want to take a huge risk here. So I used a couple of candies where I just leveled up, so it's efficient to use it at that point. And then I'm fighting this optional trainer, which not many people fight, this swimmer. A lot of times it doesn't make sense to fight him, but he actually gives quite good experience yields considering that we're still in the early game. So we fight this mandatory, and then we'll fight Misty. What's the strategy against Misty? Well, it's pretty simple. We set up conversion, and then we set up a bunch of sharpens, and we hope that Misty is kind to us. We can lose this fight, especially if she crits us too much, but I think that it is a pretty favored fight. I'll mention again that usually I use the experience router to find out exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, okay, do you set up 5 sharpens? Do you set up 6 sharpens? It's a little harder to route Porygon because, to my knowledge, I don't think there's an easy way to do that sort of calculation with like my stat experience and the typing being different and such like that. So I just set up 6 and I hope for the best. I think it makes sense to set up 6, but I'm not really sure. Now, seeing a couple tackles there is scary, but it also means that I was able to hit with +6 and do massive damage with every hit. So that is actually one of the fastest ways to beat Misty because it didn't become a stall fest with her setting up hardens and me having to hit in multiple times. So as long as I survive, it's actually an ideal scenario. All right, let's talk about strategy here for the rival. The Sandshrew is a menace, an absolute menace. I do not want it to hit me with Sand Attack because then the run can absolutely fall apart. To one hit it, I need to get up to +5. +5 is kind of hard because this Spearow does hit hard, and I missed a tackle there, which didn't help, but I did manage to get to +5 without losing, and so it should be a sweep of tackle as long as I don't get a miss. And okay, 4 health after a quick attack, but it's a guarantee on the Eevee. So we're through everything here and I'm on low health. Now I have to make kind of a snap judgment call here. I could go back and heal, or I could use my last 2 potions. I chose to use my last 2 potions. That means I have to get through the rest of Nugget Bridge without taking any more than 44 damage. For a really elite Pokemon, that wouldn't be a problem. But for Porygon, it is a little bit sketchy, especially since we don't have Psybeam yet. But if you look at the experience, we are close. We are very close. At level 23, it's going to come to our rescue. Now here we got Sand Attacked. We got a couple misses. The Pidgey did a lot of damage. That tackle just crit. We just missed another tackle. This is how things can go south. We only have 11 health left. If I go back to the Pokemon Center and heal, I lose a ton of time. So I decided, you know what? Let's fight the Rattata. Let's hope it doesn't knock us out. Down to 4 health, but now I have Psybeam and I have guaranteed 1 hits. And here, there are Pokemon the rest of the way that know Quick Attack. Like this upcoming last has a Pidgey that can Quick Attack us, and it Quick Attacked us down to 2 health. But against that Nidoran, which is usually quite bulky, we have super effective damage against this Mankey, which is also relatively bulky. For early game Pokemon, it's not bulky in general, but for the Nugget Bridge Pokemon, it's relatively bulky. We got super effective damage against that as well, and super effective damage here. It is no accident, by the way, that I placed my rare candies where I did and did the amount of training that I did. I wanted to line up getting Psybeam with when we hit all those psychic types on Nugget Bridge. So no accident that this happened. This was carefully planned. My execution, to be honest, may only be about 90 to 95% of what you typically expect from me in these videos. And that is because, like I said, it's my 4th playthrough, but this playthrough was too much fun. I had to share it. So we'll get to enjoy some of my gaffes later on too. Okay, a couple more psychic types. You'll notice I'm still at 5 health, but I'm pretty much in the clear. There are only 1 hits left over here. Like Geodudes don't have good special. Machop is going to take super effective damage. The grass poison types, the Oddishes that are coming up next, also take super effective damage. So I get to utilize here for the first time, and I bet you didn't have this on your bingo card. I am using Red Bar Strats in a 4-time speedrun with a Porygon. I bet you didn't see that coming. But sure enough, I got to hold Red Bar for quite a while. If you're familiar with the traditional, like, regular speed Red Bar strats, usually with Nidoking, you do get to save, like, little bits of time. It's more in red and blue, by the way. I'm playing yellow here, obviously. With yellow, Red Bar matters less, but it still does matter a little bit. So with the really elite Pokemon like Nidoking or Mewtwo, something like that, it might make sense to go for Red Bar and try to go as quickly as possible. I think for Porygon, it's just a happy coincidence, a happy mistake that I ended up in Red Bar, but I don't mind because it happened at a perfect time and I got to really fly through those battles. Unfortunately, I did have to take a heal before moving on, though. In a more ideal world, I would have had potions that I could heal with and continue. In this case, I knew that I'm not going to get through this next stretch of Pokemon without healing first. Okay, let's talk about what's coming up next. Because we actually do have a serious threat that I have to talk about, and it's not a joke. It's Lieutenant Surge, and we're putting respect on his name. Some people like to make fun of him, like gift shop manager Surge, such and such. No. This is Lieutenant Surge. Let's put some respect. He's got Thunderbolt. He's got Mega Kick. He's got Mega Punch. He's got a lot better stats, and he's at a higher level than the Porygon. So this is not going to be an easy fight coming up against Surge. Our best attacking option right now is Psybeam, but Psybeam is a special type attack, and it's not one with stab. And the Raichu has much higher special than we do. It is better to hit it with physical moves if we have good physical options, but Tackle, even with stab, is only 52 base power. It's not that great. And Raichu is doing so much damage to us that setting up with Sharpens and hitting with Tackle is not going to feel very good. So there were various other ways that competitors in the Porygon race 2 years ago handled this Raichu. Scott went up to level 28 in order to get Recover. I believe Speedrunner 0218 went for Thunder Wave to cut the consistency of the Raichu and then spam Psybeam through. You can also get through easier if you happen to hit Psybeam and get a confusion off. So if you get a little bit of luck there, it could hurt itself, do pretty good damage to itself and help you out. But Psybeam's like a 6-hit or something. It is not good ranges, and you are likely to lose quite fast. Okay, David, enough monologuing, right? What strategy did I go for? Well, let's think about it. Is there a way that we could punch above our weight? Is there a TM or an option that you have where you could potentially end this fight in only about 2 or 3 turns before you take enough hits to get knocked out? Well, you'd want to be in full health for this fight, and then you'd want to use TM34. I really believe in this move. It's more often used against Misty, but actually, if more Pokemon struggled against Surge, it would be used against Surge quite a bit more too, I think, because there's a single Pokemon. Bye drops off hard later on when there are teams with multiple Pokemon in play. But when there's only one Pokemon, it's really good. So let's see what happens. Can we get through? Mega Kick misses. That's a great start. Thunderbolt does huge damage. Another Thunderbolt takes me to red, and it was a 2-turn bide, not a 3-turn bide, which is what we love to see. Of course, he could have dropped the ball with like an X-Speed or a Growl or something after that. By the way, even Growl would have been annoying if we tried to like sharpen and tackle our way through. So it's a scary fight, and I stand by Bide. I think it's not only the best option from a mathematics perspective, it's also the fastest way, because if you're relying on winning other ways, like with Recover or with like 6 Psybeams connecting before you take enough damage to lose, that's going to be slower too. So I think both from a mathematics and from a speed perspective, Bide is the call. And if you get knocked out, take the quick reset, try again. If you get too many resets, restart your playthrough. But I think it's more likely than not that you get through pretty quickly, because you'll pretty much always tank 2 attacks. Sometimes you could tank 3 attacks, and like if you get a couple Mega Punches in there. And Surge is likely enough to use things like Growl and X-Speed to give you an extra turn too. Okay, Oddish Last, refreshing. It's nice to have 1-hits. It's almost a guaranteed 1-hit on all of those Pokemon. It's guaranteed on the Bellsprouts, and it's like 90-something% for the Oddish. So we get through there. I learned Bide at level 28, or excuse me, I learned Recover over Bide at level 28. And Recover is going to be useful. Now, in my first playthrough, I really didn't want to use it. I don't even know if I taught it. If I taught it, I overrode it pretty quickly. But there are significant challenges in the mid to late game that require Recover. I'll let you think about what those battles might be. But there's one trainer in particular which really walled me for a while, because we're going to get great coverage with electric and ice moves, but we don't have the full complement of moves that some normal types get. So we're not going to get like ground moves. We're not going to get water moves. So while we do have decent coverage, we're not going to have answers for everything in every trainer. Here, the Slowpoke is a bit annoying. It's best to tackle your way through there as long as tackle doesn't get disabled. Resisted Psybeam can do it too, though. You just have to be careful with PP, because it's pretty easy to run out of PP on Psybeam through this stretch, and that's why you see me actually flipping to tackle there to finish that trainer off. I'm going a little slow there with the antidote, and now that I think about it, I'm a little disappointed in myself, because what happens with my bag management is that I'm almost always moving that antidote to the bottom of my bag when I'm switching the Repel and the Bicycle up to the top of my bag. So I should really know to look at the bottom immediately instead of slowly scrolling through. This is the sort of thing where I'm really at the top of my game. I'm very quick at, and immediately knowing about where stuff is in my bag. So I quickly go to that section, scan, and then move up or down once or twice to get there. When I'm not at the very top of my game, you'll see me do stuff like that and bleed a couple seconds here or there, looking slowly through my bag, because item management is one of the most important parts of a speed run. It's probably not one that you think about as much. It's not as glamorous as like great routing and leveling up exactly when you need to and that sort of thing. But it's actually just as important to a speed run is only picking up the items you need, knowing where the items are in your bag, quickly accessing everything. Very, very important for a speed run. Here I'm out of Psybeam, so I set up a couple Sharpen. And this is, again, another place where I'm not totally sure if I have the right number of Sharpens. I was using Psybeam in the past, but I ran out of PP this time because I had to use a couple extra tackles. It's the kind of thing that's not totally mapped out. This is me playing by feel. I don't expect at this point that it's going to be my last run. Although I have a 0 reset run going right now, and that's great. Typically, like I said, 4 isn't enough. So my mindset is kind of free and easy right now, and I'm not really expecting it to be my best run. A lot of times around this point, I'm just trying to put up like a good run, and then I use that as a reference point later for my splits and see, okay, can I improve on it or not? You'll notice that I go to the department store here, and you know, it's a good time, a good opportunity to sell some items. Of course, we have to pick up repels for later on. Haven't really talked about it much, but I'm working on Scott's Thoughts rules, almost exactly Scott's Thoughts rules, and I'm using his overlay as well. So I'm not running into encounters until repels are available, but of course then I am buying and using repels. I'm picking up the Polka Doll there because I'm going to be using Mimic later on, only for one fight actually, just against Agatha. And I'm picking up Tri Attack. Tri Attack is rarely used because it's just a worse body slam. You may think that it has secondary effects like burning, freezing, that sort of thing. That's not until Gen 2. So it's just a vanilla 80 base power move with no secondary effects in this game. Body slam is 85 base power, and it has a 30% chance to paralyze. So it's just a much better move, but unfortunately we don't get it with Porygon. So the best option is Tri Attack, or like I mentioned, Double Edge earlier, but I didn't find a good use for Double Edge in this playthrough. I am not averse to using Double Edge. I think it's actually kind of a fun challenge to plan out your health correctly and kind of use that as an additional resource. But in this case, I don't think it made sense to. If you'd like to run Porygon and try the challenge this time that I end up with, I'd be curious to know what your routing is, because Porygon actually has a lot of options, and it's not at all intuitive what the best options are. We do get Psychic, which is amazing, and Psychic, I think, is a must for the mid-game, and it would also be great for Agatha. But we're going to run into moveset constraints very soon, holding on to both Sharpen and Recover. And like I said earlier, I think we need Recover. If we could toss Recover and we didn't need it, if we could override it, we'd have a lot more flexibility through the mid-game, but I really do think that we need it, and that's specifically for Blaine and Giovanni. Because both of those late game gym leaders would not be a problem in red and blue, but in yellow, they're absolute menaces. Blaine has Pokemon with very high stats, especially high special. So our best moves like Psychic and Ice Beam and Blizzard, all those are not going to do incredible damage. They'll do okay, but not great against his fire types. We don't have any ground moves. We don't have any water moves. So we're going to have to kind of fight him fair and square. And that's not easy for Porygon. We can set up Sharpens, but it's hard to set up against the Ninetales because it uses really powerful Fire Attack and Flamethrower, or it uses Confuse Ray, which makes us do massive damage to ourselves. And by the way, I'm not really giving play-by-play on the Ghosts. They're not a problem with Psychic. We're normal types of hits with Lick. We're not going to get paralyzed. So Blaine is a problem that we have to plan for. We would love to have, say, like Psychic and Ice Beam on our moveset throughout the whole playthrough. And Thunderbolt, like we'd love to have all three of those on our moveset right now. That would be great if we could just teach those, but we don't have a place for them. We need Tri Attack. It's our best same type attack bonus that doesn't take recoil and is 100% accurate. It's our best option. We need Sharpen for its primary effect and for the badge boosts. So we have to make some trade-offs. I've chosen to keep Psychic for some time because we're going to face a lot of Psychic types here, both the mandatory ones right now and also the poison types coming up on Biker Road, where Psychic is going to be the best option for training. So mid-game training, it's just really, really great to have a Psychic type move. And we need the extra base power of Psychic over Psybeam. If I could have kept Psybeam, like if we were Kadabra or something, right? Or a Hypno, maybe Psybeam would have been enough damage for training. But we're not one of those Pokemon. We have like pretty average stats and we don't have Psychic Stab. We don't have Stab for Psychic type moves. So we need the extra base power from Psychic. And even still, we're not going to be one-hitting everything. Here, I am going to do a bit of training on Biker Road. You don't always see me fight this one, but it's not a bad option, especially since I only have to set up one Sharpen. Then I have one hits on Ollie Grimer with Tri Attack. Managing PP is going to be important here because we'll need a number of elixirs for the late game. We don't want to burn through all of our elixirs here. So I'm going to be alternating between using Psychic and using Tri-Attack for this stretch of training. Here you can see that it's not a one hit on this Weezing to use Psychic, so I'm going to kind of alternate back and forth. I'm going to use Psychic first in case I get a crit. I don't get a crit, so then I switch to a Tri-Attack. By the way, I didn't realize until this playthrough that Tri-Attack doesn't have a ton of PP itself, and that looks like a mistake, by the way, and it is. I meant to pick up the rare candy, but this Pokemon, this trainer, is usually a mistake, but he's actually part of my routing because Porygon doesn't have great options for training very easily, and I wanted to do a little extra training on this route. It is part of the planned training, even though that looked like a mistake. I am, as well as this one, this biker with the, I think it's a cue ball. This cue ball with Primeape and Machoke is quite good. The Primeape is a range, the Machoke is guaranteed, but they give quite good experience if you can one hit them for how much time they take. And then of course, who Scott calls the biker boss here at the end. The biker boss is excellent experience. Agility is something that I think everyone in Scott's Thoughts race from a couple years ago taught. It's one that I will be skipping. There's a reason for that. And that's that almost all the major threats, both in the late game and the, I guess you could call it the mid-late game, like Rival 5, Blaine, Giovanni, Sabrina, all of them can be managed while either underspeeding them or while using Sharpen to badge boost. Now you'll see something interesting there. Usually I'll go to the Safari Zone if I go do the Viking first, but I'm at level 35. I'm going to be using the badge boost glitch for speed, and I chose to fly out of there before the Safari Zone because I'm not level 37 yet. So I could run into level 36 Nidoran, and I don't want to risk that. So I decided to fly out and fight Erika now rather than get vitamins. Now, if I really needed the full restore or like the protein or the carbos that's in the Safari Zone, then I would have gone ahead and just risked the wild encounters. But in this case, I don't need any of those items in a pressing way. So I'm going to wait on those and fight Erika now. You might think it's a no-brainer that I'm going to use Psychic to knock her Pokemon out because you have super effective damage. I'm actually not. The reason is Tangle is like pretty easy to set up on, so it gives me a chance to set up a couple Sharpens. And with Porygon's physical attack being pretty good and getting stabbed, and Erika's Pokemon having quite high special, which is also special defense in this game, it turns out it's actually better to set up Sharpen and use Tri-Attacks to knock out her Pokemon rather than taking them head-on with Psychic. Okay, so what's next? I'm level 37. Is this a high enough level to fight Koga? And I determined that it is. Now, we're also going to be using some rare candies right before Koga too, but we're going to take advantage of the high experience yield trainers here. This juggler is mandatory, but he gives quite good experience with the Kadabra and the Drowsies. And the tamers in this gym are also fantastic experience. They're up there with the bikers as some of the best trainers in the game, especially in the mid game. Victory Road training tends to be the most efficient in the game, but next most efficient behind that would be like Psych, the biker boss, the biker with the two Weezings, and these tamers that have the Arbok and the Sandslash, but they're scary because look what just happened. I almost lost. Those Arboks can glare you down, and if you're not one-hitting the Pokemon, and I'm not, it's like not a very good range to one-hit the Arboks. Things can go south in a hurry. Here, I decided to go ahead and just knock this one out, and I used Recover. I could have skipped that, but I was kind of banking on not taking any damage and then not having to heal after that. I can't remember if I have a full restore in my bag right now, but even if I do, I don't want to use it. I could have used that super potion, so I guess it would have been fine. Here, I'm not sure why I'm so slow. The rare candies, of course, are right there. I was looking for my elixir. Right. It would have been a pretty bad mistake to go into the fight without the elixir. I go up to level 42, which is not over a damage rounding threshold. 43 would be better, but I don't have candies because I used 2 candies early in the game, and this gives me about a 75% chance to one-hit the first Venonat. Then, instead of using Psychic the rest of the way, and this is a common theme, sometimes it will be better against large teams especially, and in the late game, to set up a number of Sharpens. If you're wondering why I set up on the second one instead of the first one, it's because the second one doesn't know Sleep Powder, and Sleep Powder is definitely an easy way to lose in Gen 1 because Gen 1 Sleep is broken. So as long as you can survive 4 turns to set up 4 Sharpens, you'll have a likely chance to one-hit all the rest of the Pokemon, including the Ace Venomoth. Okay. Not bad. Not great. Not great. But not bad. At this point, 28 something minutes with a Koga split, it's not necessarily where you want to be, like if you're a top tier Pokemon, but I was feeling pretty good at this point for a Porygon. Like, to give you some reference point, in my first playthrough with Porygon, it took me about 58 minutes to beat the game. That's not fast. That's like a bottom tier type Pokemon. For a fully evolved Pokemon, it's pretty bottom tier. We're talking like Onix type territory, maybe Aerodactyl. Like, you expect a really bad Pokemon to finish around an hour. So I didn't have super high hopes. I was thinking maybe sub 48 would be possible after my first playthrough, but I wasn't thinking much better than that would be possible. So now that we've gotten through most of the bulk of the game, honestly, there's not a whole lot left to do. We have to beat Rival Fivel, Giovanni, but like there's not a lot of optional trainers that we need to fight the rest of the way. And there's not many mandatory trainers left except for the gym leaders. So we've actually gotten through the bulk of things and we can go pretty quickly from here on out. Now, I do want to fight Rival 5 next, but I'm forgetting something in my routing. This is a mistake that cost me less time than you might think, but I'm supposed to be teaching Blizzard here. The reason for that is that Blizzard is going to give me the ice coverage that I need for the Sand Slash coming up, but it's also, looking forward a little bit, going to help me against Giovanni, because the Nidoking and the Nidoqueen are a big problem if you don't have a strong answer for them. They do massive damage. And so I'm going to want Blizzard on the set. And that's why I've refrained from teaching Ice Beam. I'm actually going to teach Blizzard before Ice Beam, which is not something that's common, but I was pretty happy with this solution in routing. I realized at this point that I'm supposed to be teaching Blizzard. I'm going to use Ice Beam instead later on for Lance. But for the mid-game, late mid-game, I actually want Blizzard instead. So I choose to dig out of here after picking up the card key. And at level 43, I'm going to go into the mansion and pick up Blizzard, the Blizzard TM-14. You might wonder, because I talked about levels earlier with the Safari Zone, aren't there Pokemon that can catch me? Isn't there like a Raticate here that can get me? The answer is yes, there are 2 Raticate that can get me. There are level 43 Raticate, which I won't block because I'm the same level, and there are level 46 Raticate, which I cannot block because they're a higher level. So there is a chance when I do this that I'll run into Raticate, but I decided that, okay, I'll out-level most of the Pokemon in the area, and there's a Raticate, and I can't escape. Being a slow Pokemon really gets punished here. So I took some damage there, but I do escape before before losing. Taking a blackout there would be awful. But I determined it was worth the risk, because I think the benefits of having Blizzard outweigh not having it in time. The reason for that is that Giovanni is very difficult, and I'm not allowing myself to use the Mimic double team strategy. Giovanni can be cheesed if you mimic the Persian's double team at a lower level from many, many Pokemon going for evasion boosting. My rules preclude me from using evasion boosting moves. I don't know that I've talked about the distinction before. I will allow Sand Attack, moves that lower accuracy of the opponent, but I'm not going to allow evasion boosting moves for my own Pokemon. And I'm extending that for consistency against Giovanni as well, even if it makes it more painful for some Pokemon to get past Giovanni. So I decided I really need Blizzard. It will save me levels. And let's talk about this fight quickly. Getting through the Sand Slash is a guarantee as long as I hit it. And then I need to set up a couple Sharpens to get through the rest of the fight. Luckily, the Cloyster just spams withdrawal. There's no reason it's doing that. It's randomizing between its moves. It doesn't have to use withdrawal, even though it looks like it. I don't know why I switched to Blizzard there. I think I lost my mind. I actually know why I did. It's because I thought I still had Psychic there. Like, I forgot that I had just overwritten Psychic. So I thought Blizzard there. And then I switched to manage PP. I was like, oh, Tri-Attack's getting low on PP. I should use the Psychic to finish off the Magneton. Which, by the way, is a little unfortunate that there was a crit there, because the chances of knocking it out with a crit are not as high as if with just 2 Sharpens. 2 Sharpens is better than getting a crit. But here it's a little sketchy, and you see me think about it there. I hesitate, and I'm like, okay, I should use Recover. And then I'm low on attacks here, but 3 Blizzards should be enough. And I decided, okay, let's switch to Blizzard from Meowth. It doesn't have very good special, so this should be fine. And then I probably should have used the Elixir before that fight rather than after it, but I decided to go ahead and use the Elixir now. It may look like I forgot. I don't think I forgot, but I shouldn't have opened the bag twice. I should have just taken care of it the first time. All right. Strategy for Giovanni is pretty simple. You set up a couple Sharpens, and that should give you the ranges that you need on the first couple Pokemon. Blizzard, of course, is a one-hit whenever it hits the Rhyhorn. And then the Nidoqueen is pretty bulky, so we use Tri-Attack here. It's not even close, and we get crit from Double Kick, so the Nidoqueen is a bit scary, but at full health, there wasn't too much that could go wrong there, although that does foreshadow what it would look like against Giovanni next time when he has both a Nidoqueen and a Nidoking, and they are going to use Double Kick every time. So you can see why I really want to have Blizzard for that extra base power, so that I can get guaranteed 1-hits. With Ice Beam, it would take lots of moves to set. I think it would take a full 6 Sharpen setup, which is difficult to get against the Persian. So it's going to be a lot better to have a 120 base power move in Blizzard. Strategy here is interesting, because we're not going to outspeed unless we get hit by a ton of badge boosts, like a bunch of flashes, but we have guaranteed 1-hits with Tri-Attack with just +2. So unless of course it uses a defensive move. But that Sabrina fight was not bad at all. And in practice, in my other runs, it wasn't bad either. It's very tempting for Pokemon that know Swift to go out of your way to teach Swift in order to get the guaranteed win there. Because if you don't know, you can just set up forever on the Abra and then use Swift bypassing accuracy checks, not caring about how many times you got flashed, and sweep that fight and win it. I think it takes self-discipline to not go for that strategy because it feels so good. It feels like, oh yes, this is the best strategy. This is a guaranteed win. It makes that consistent part of your brain that wants to just have the guaranteed win. It makes it very happy to run the Swift strategy. However, you saw how fast that fight was, right? I set up twice and then I just swept, and I didn't have to teach a move for it, and I didn't have to go out of my way to pick up the TM. The speed running move is to just risk it. Even if you take a reset, it's going to be faster. Okay, Blaine. We talked about him earlier. He's a menace. Quick attack is lucky, but Confused Ray is very dangerous for me because I'm boosting my own defense, and I made a horrible mistake there, and I realized it right afterwards. I changed my routing. I used to need 3 sharpens, but this time I needed 4 because I was fighting Blaine at a lower level than I previously routed out. I made a horrible mistake. I got hit by a fire blast and held on, and at this point, I can't believe it because Porygon has some difficult fights. Brock, Misty, Koga, Sabrina to a lesser extent, they can all cause resets. Blaine is awful. Blaine caused so many resets before I had recover on the set, and the great irony is that I didn't even have to use it, which is hilarious. But I had 20 resets against Blaine, like over 20 resets against Blaine in my first playthrough against, like, I was putting up like an okay time, and then I had a ton of resets against them, losing over and over again against the Ninetales, hitting me with fire moves, hitting me with Confuse Ray. So to get by on the first attempt here and didn't even have to waste time setting up recovers, this is when I'm thinking, oh my god, this run is blessed. This is the run. This could be it. I'm at 0 resets at Giovanni. All right, let's save. Let's see what happens. I got 4 blizzards. A little sketchy. It'd be better if I had 5 blizzards available, but I didn't know if I wanted to use an elixir there. Blizzard on the Dog Trio is great. I'm keeping Sharpen here, by the way, in case I get slashed, or not Sharpen, but I'm keeping Recover. In case I get slashed, I can heal back up and keep setting up. But with only, 4 badge boosts is enough, but I was getting Screeched as well, so I have enough badge boosts here. Blizzards are guarantees on all 3 of those Pokemon as long as they hit. Now, in case you're wondering, because Blizzard's 90% accurate in Gen 1, so there's good chances to hit, but not great chances to hit 4 times in a row, especially since the Doug Trio could use Dig. It outspeeds me. So you might be wondering if I had a plan B in case one of those Blizzards missed, and the answer is yes, I did. Actually, Tri Attack with +2 attack had a, you know what? I'll put it on the screen. I had a chance to one-hit KO the Nido with Tri Attack if I needed to. Okay, here's the fun part. We're overwriting Recover because we don't need that anymore. We actually never used it, but in my previous runs, I really needed it. I stand by that. I think that Recover was the smartest way to route this. It can cause a lot of resets at Blaine if you don't have it. But now we don't need it anymore for sure. It'd be nice to have against the champion, but I think we need the moveset flexibility more in other ways. So I teach Thunderbolt. It's going to be really important, not just for the Cloyster in this fight, but also for Lorelei coming up soon. We're on really low health here. It's not great, but we set up to +3, and that's going to be good enough to one-hit KO everything. As long as that doesn't happen. Oh gosh, 5 health. And we outspeed, and we snap out of confusion, knock out the Kadabra, knock out the Flareon. We survived on 5 health, just went up to 8 after the level up. And here I'm thinking, oh my gosh, still 0 resets. The chances are so low that I'd be at 0 resets at this point in time. And look at the clock. Look at the clock. 37, almost 38 minutes right now going into Victory Road. This could be fast. Like in an ideal scenario, this could even be like under 45, maybe under 44 minutes. That's wild. Now, we're not out of the woods yet because we can still take resets at the Elite Four, and we can especially take resets against Agatha. One of the big compromises of this route is that we don't have Psychic type moves. We would really, really love, I mean, at this point in the playthrough, we had Psybeam earlier, we had Psychic earlier, but we overwrote Psychic and we don't have Psychic anymore for Agatha. That means we're going to be using Blizzard or Thunderbolt on her. The ranges are not as good. By the way, you saw that I skipped that Victory Road rare candy. There is an argument to be made for picking it up. Besides Agatha, the other hardest fight that we have coming up is the champion fight. The champion is a problem for many, many Pokemon. And even the Pokemon that can handle the champion usually have a chance of losing because he's very, very good in the yellow games. Porygon is slow. I don't know if you've noticed. Oh my gosh. And we have 5 health. Do you remember we didn't heal? We have 5 health. I ran into this person by accident. Blizzard. Okay. I have to pause. You will not believe how lucky that just was. The Dugong has a 2 out of 3 chance of attacking there. It knows Growl, but the other 2 moves are attacks. And we don't ever one-hit that Dugong unless we crit. We had 5 health left. If we had taken a blackout there, we would have gone all the way back to the Pokemon Center and had to buy more repels and then bike back. I could not believe it. I was so jittery. I couldn't believe that I just about threw the perfect run. And then, like manna from heaven, like dodging a bullet, this Pokemon trainer, which I forgot can even switch out, it's not a juggler, switched out and gave us a chance to knock it out. And at this point, I know this is the one I'm turning into a video. Running into that trainer is just something that can never happen, especially if you're low health after the Rival 6 fight. You can never do that. It's the worst mistake. It's an embarrassing mistake. I was thinking in my head, let's talk about psychology just for a second, and I'll make it really brief. Brains are really bad at not doing things. They're good at doing things. So when you tell yourself, don't run into that trainer, sometimes your brain will just run into the trainer. And that's what happened. I got close and I was thinking, oh, I need to make sure I don't run into that trainer. What I should have said is I should slow down, but I told myself I should not run into that trainer. And then I ran into the trainer. And I was so fortunate that I got through. Okay. And then I have to regain my composure. I have too much experience, but thankfully in the routing, I was supposed to use a rare candy there anyway. Going to level 54 is perfect for a medium fast Pokemon, because then that sets me up to level up after every Pokemon all the way up into the champion. I do some chip damage against the Dugong here because I want a couple more turns to set up for free with Sharpen. Remember, we don't have Recover anymore, so there is no healing at this point. So that crit actually hurt quite a lot, but we want +6 because that'll give us good ranges the rest of the way with Thunderbolt and Tri-Attack. So we're going to use Thunderbolt against the Pokemon that have relatively lower special, and we're going to use Tri-Attack against the Pokemon that have relatively lower defense. And in this way, Porygon really shines. He's kind of a, oh my gosh, did you see that? Did you see that? Did you see how many bullets I'm dodging? That was a likely one-hit range that I missed, and then a Hydro Pump miss right back, and we're through to Bruno, to the hiker. I could, like, the nerves right now, and then, like, at some point it starts to feel like it's destined to happen. Like, only good things will happen for this little Cyberduck. This is incredible. Not a lot to talk about in the Bruno fight, so let's talk about Agatha quickly. We don't have Psychic, so what are we going to do for Agatha? Well, it's going to have to be a long fight. There's no really way around that. Thunderbolt's just going to kind of peck at it. It's going to be like 2 and 3 hits even after setup. So we're going to Mimic for Substitute, and I don't really see another way other than that, unless we were to somehow keep a Psychic type move for this fight. It's going to have to be a little bit slow, and like I said, it's one of the concessions of the route. There is no perfect route where you get to use all the moves that you want, at least not one that I could come up with. So I fumble around in my bag a little bit looking for Mimic, and then I teach Mimic over Blizzard, and that's because we'll have Ice Beam to teach for Lance over Mimic. So this is only for one fight, but I think it is worth it. Agatha is a fight that's quite difficult. We're slower than like all their Pokemon, and don't have great stats. So we're going to have to utilize the badge boost here. And you can see my stats dynamically updating in the bottom left. Thank you, Scott. Scott designed that, and it took him like years to come up with an overlay that's this good, and he just lets people use it for free. So I assume you're probably a Scott's Thoughts fan if you're watching this, but if you're not, you should be. And here you can see that I'm kind of just plucking away at his Pokemon. I can one-hit the ones with physical attack, the Arbok and the Golbat. But for the Ghosts, they have high special, and even with 6 badge boosts, I'm just not doing that much damage. The Gengar's a 3-hit here, but she uses a Super Potion. I get a nice roll there, and we're through. So having the Substitute up was really valuable there in the extended fight to win it on our first try. Now you'll notice that we have Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt's great for the Gyarados. We want to keep that, and we also want Ice Beam. We're going to teach that over Mimic because we don't need Mimic anymore. I originally thought we might need Mimic for the champion to get Earthquake, but it turns out that Stab Tri-Attack is quite a great offensive option for physical attack, so we don't really need to do that. We need 2 badge boosts. We get hit by a Leer, which is convenient. So dynamically there, I decide, okay, don't need 2 Sharpens, only need 1 Sharpen since I got hit by a Leer. We're going to be using Thunderbolts and Ice Beams. And the Aerodactyl is a range, and it's faster than us. But usually we'll get through that fine, especially since we're on full health. And then, okay, it's a 1-hit guaranteed on the Dragonite. Champion, this is another concession. We would love to have Recover on our moveset still for the champion, because we're going to have to set up a lot. And the Sand Slash is scary now. It knows Slash and Earthquake, which are both going to do massive damage. Here, we're kind of just gambling and hoping that the Sand Slash doesn't do too much damage to us. Starting out with the Slash is not what we want to see. The Fury Swipes is what we want to see. We want to see Fury Swipes, and we want to see Poison Sting. And Earthquake, we go down to 23 health. At this point, 7 health, I should reset. Objectively, I should reset, because we're going to 2-hit the Executor unless we like freeze it or something. But I really wanted to get through with a 0 reset. We got stomped and I wasted time. But can you blame me? We got so lucky the whole playthrough. I just thought the luck was going to last forever. That could have been sub 44 if we got through on the first try. But okay, try again. Got to set up Sharpens. We need 4 Sharpens in order to get an outspeed on the Alakazam and a guaranteed 1 hit on the first 4 Pokemon. Here I got Poisoned, which is not great. We're going to have to 2-hit the Cloyster and 2-hit the Executor, so there's going to be a couple extra turns. I got hit with an Earthquake there and I reset. I'm going to be at too low of health. We need some health to play with to get through the Cloyster at the end, as well as if the Executor hits us with something like a Stomp. So we need a little bit of health. We can't take massive damage from the Sand Slash. We don't have recovery. Earthquake is not what I want to see there, but I'm not ready to reset just yet. Okay, Poison Sting is good. Earthquake is not great. 44. I'm going to try it. We're going to try it. We're going to try to get through. Tri-Attack's a guarantee on the Alakazam. And up next, Executor. Hope it doesn't do too much damage to us. Ice Beam's going to be a 2-hit. 23 health. I don't know if we can get past the Cloyster. It's going to be close. And we speed tie the Cloyster too, so it could hit us twice. If it hits us twice, we're definitely dead. It missed Clamp. It missed Clamp. And it's a guaranteed 1 hit with Tri-Attack if we don't crit. And Flareon goes down. 44 minutes and 43 seconds with this little Cyberduck. We had amazing luck. I thought it was the chosen one. I thought it was going to be undefeated all the way through. But still, with only 2 resets, this is a fantastic result. I was so happy with this, and we had so many hype moments that I was excited to share it with all of you. So I hope you enjoyed this playthrough. I thought this was one of the most fun playthroughs I've ever had. In my next video, I'm going to run a truly elite Pokemon with a chance to get into the S tier. He's the traditional speedrunner's choice, but this time around, he won't be able to use X items in the late game. Next episode, Nidoking.